Hey guys, good morning. Happy Labor Day. You're here with Bubba Da Vinci on a beautiful Monday morning, which in the United States is also Labor Day. Um, Trying to get everything adjusted today. I just, for some reason, we had a cold front move in last night and everything is super chilly. And I don't know why, but it just seemed like for some reason today, everything took just a little longer to do because it was cold. And yeah, I also noticed, I mean, I don't know if you guys are noticed where you're living, but the sun is obviously moving into the time of the year where it does not come up as early. So I'm also finding that when I look outside and everything else, I usually plan my morning schedule around looking where the sun is. And it was pretty dark this morning when I was still trying to get everything together. So yeah, there you go. So morning to you, Farm Don. Morning, everybody. Just kind of jumping into everything. So I put on today, what is Labor Day? Yeah, actually, it was what the hell is Labor Day? You know, I had planned. I think you guys remember on Saturday I talked about all the things I needed to get done today on Monday, Tuesday, preparing for Friday. Hopefully, that they will come out and we'll finish tearing off the last of the porch and start jacking up the house. Um, so I start on Saturday sending out messages to different groups and companies and everything else to kind of say, hey, can we get a meeting together at this time? Can we do this? Can we do that? And all of a sudden, I started getting messages back, thank goodness, of people saying, oh, we're not working on Monday. It's a 3-day holiday. It's Labor Day. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, it's Labor Day. So the banks are closed. A lot of doctors' offices are closed. Basically, any federal or state office is closed as part of the holiday. And then a lot of stores are closed. More this year than I'm used to. Most usually, these sorts of holidays, the stores remain open, and a lot of the, like I said, federal and state and institutional businesses closed. Schools are closed, all that other stuff, and I guess I didn't pay attention, but people have been running Labor Day sales for about the last 7 days, and then a lot of the businesses I would expect to be open on a holiday are closed, and they're just doing online sales, which is a big shift, at least here in the United States. Every year, more and more retail stores get away from brick and mortar and move more into online sales, because keeping brick and mortar operating between labor costs and costs of the rentals and all your overhead is really expensive. And fewer people are actually going in and buying from those facilities. And yeah, anyway, I was surprised. So today is not a complete bust, but it is a kind of disappointing day for me, because it really puts me a day behind. Here in the Midwest, Sundays, we've talked about this before, are kind of family days, church days. It's hard to get a hold of a lot of business things. You can go shopping, but even a lot of shops are closed on Sundays now. And so Saturday I did some work. I had planned everything for Sunday being a general get some things done around the house and some catch up on emails and things like that done, with Monday being a full work day and a very heavy schedule, pre-planning for the front end of the week, only to find out everything's freaking closed today. And so, and tomorrow I'm supposed to have a doctor's appointment, my first full checkup on my diabetes. And now I'm thinking about canceling that, because that'll take about 4.5, 5 hours out of my day, 3 hours round trip in a car ride, and probably an hour and a half to 2 hours at the doctor, because they have to do blood work. First full blood work being done. And I don't know if I can afford 4 to 5 hours out of a day when we've got such tight deadlines and everything else. So once again, your health, gets put on the back burner in order to make sure that we're getting everything done for the company. Company seems to come first a lot of the time. And yeah, just is what it is. So to answer the question, what the hell is Labor Day? So, in the United States, I feel like nowadays we have a lot of insignificant holidays that, meant something, 200 years ago or 100 years ago, but aren't relevant in today's society. And we continue to keep them for whatever reason. I believe the federal government and state governments just like having the extra holidays. And when I say they're not relevant, it's always good to remember your past and why things happened. But if I were to ask any of my 3 daughters, which are 18, 21, 23, and to be frank, I did last night, and I said, "Do you guys know what Labor Day is and why we celebrate it?" And none of them had an answer, and they don't even realize, other than the fact that the term is Labor Day. They don't even know. They didn't, it's just another day to them. They're all off of school today. They're all happy about that. But again, they just don't understand why things happen. And Labor Day is a celebration of a movement that happened like in early 19th century. Well, maybe it's not early 19th century because it was almost the 20th century. I think it was 1885 to 1887 is when the biggest portion of the movement is. I'm really good with dates from the 1800s. Our restaurant was founded in 1886, and so we did a lot of research when we with our restaurant, because we're the oldest. I take that back. We were the oldest running restaurant in the state of Iowa up till COVID. Since we closed down the restaurant after COVID, just because of numbers and things like that, there's another restaurant that is the oldest restaurant in Iowa. They had the title of the oldest running restaurant in Iowa until they had a major fire and 50% of the building burned, and then they became then they had to rebuild the restaurant, so they weren't the oldest because they weren't original. And then we became the original, and then we shut down, and we've been shut down for 3 years. The goal is to hopefully open up next year or the year after again. And so we have not been continuously running since 1886 any longer. So we've now lost the title. So it's now moved to a third restaurant that started in 1908. That is now the longest and oldest continuously running restaurant in the state of Iowa. So it's kind of sad that COVID ended up doing that to us, but we lost our title. But anyway, that's kind of how I follow a lot of dates and everything else. So the idea was in the mid 1800s through the late 1800s, there were not a lot of labor laws, and labor unions were coming up in and by the way, good morning again to everybody. The labor unions were becoming more and more significant, and what they were fighting for at that period of time were rights for workers. And back then you had child labor. There were no laws about how young you could start a kid in working in facilities. There were issues with the safety of a lot of these people. People would get injured and then they would just get thrown aside and fired. And there was nothing prohibiting both the dangerous work environment or from businesses not doing anything when someone's been hurt and just kind of tossing them aside. And these people, would not have any way to make a living any longer. There were issues with work standards as far as length of day. So it was not uncommon for someone to work 12 to 16 or even more hours per day, 7 days a week, in order to keep their jobs and everything else. Now, it's funny, while I say this is no longer relevant as far as um, as far as people understanding any of this now, because we've gone so far the other direction. Um, you know, Nowadays people, I know people that have 4-day work weeks. Hell, schools in Iowa, including the schools that my daughter went to. Luckily, it didn't happen before they left, but schools have gone to 4-day school weeks because they can't find teachers. Teachers say that there's too much work for them to do in order for them to be able to accomplish everything in a 5-day work week. And so, what they're asking for is a 4-day work week. And so that 5th day is now for them to prep at home. Like that's going to happen, right? It's like, it's basically a paid day off. And so now the kids go to school 4 days a week. And I have to say, in America, at least, and especially in Iowa, these kids aren't getting the education they need in the time that they're actually there when they were going 5 days a week. Now you're cutting it down and increasing the amount of activities they have to get done in a shorter amount of time, and we're expected to be competitive in the world market. Crazy. But I wish we had a time machine that we could take like an entire city or a group like back in time, for a period of time, and then take all these kids and just say, okay, live in 1876, 4x10s. But see, you're putting in 40 hours, wifey, and I'm okay with 4x10s. It's not. My problem would be if you went to a 4-day work week and you were still doing, 6 to 8 hours a day, and you were working long with the extra day to get that done. If you're, my wife works. Yeah. My wife works 4x10s, right? She works at a hospital, and a lot of nurses and a lot of, first responders, work 3 days on, 4 days off, right? My issue is not with someone working their schedule in a way that gets the work done and achieves everything, and they're doing their hours and everything else, and they do it creatively so they can either do something else or it makes sense for the business. I'm talking about the shortcuts that everybody takes. It's like, we need so many weeks of vacation. We need this. We need that. America was built and became an industrial leader because people worked harder to achieve the things they've got. And now everybody wants the shortcut. Everybody wants to become a TikTok star and do TikTok shop and make $100,000. They all think they're going to make $100,000 and then do nothing the rest of the time. And it's a trend. I see it in my employees. I see it in people that we work with and people we do things with, where it's like when they put in the effort, it's a half-ass effort. It's like no one looks for quality anymore, or looks and wants to, it's like, here's what I did that you asked me to do. And they're looking to be superior in whatever they do. Now it's just like, I'm looking and I go, so you used AI chat, or you used AI to write this for you. What did you plug in 10 keywords? Well, I turned it in and here it is. And I'm like, yeah, but it reads like a 5-year-old wrote it. And it's very mechanical. And, this isn't what we pay you for. And so, anyway, this is what got me going last night when I found out it was Labor Day. And I'm like, we're celebrating the work that laborers and labor unions, not just work, but effort and lives and everything that they put out that no one appreciates anymore. Right? It's like these people were working incredibly long hours, 7 days a week, making unfair wages, and especially immigrants, because in the 1800s, this is just post Civil War. And the immigration prior to the Civil War was massive. People coming from Ireland and all over Europe and all over the world, really, and coming here for a better life. A lot of them got pushed into the war to fight fight into, fight the war, the Civil War, as cannon fodder, is what I basically call them, because they didn't have jobs, they needed 3 hots and a cot, and fighting in our war, just getting off the boat was better than being on the streets and starving and not being able to find a job. War ends. You have a lot of men that die, but then you have a lot of people now that are having to rebuild the country and looking for work. The railroads that's when the railroads hit their prime, trying to move across the country here in the United States. And railroads were notorious. It was basically slave labor. And the interesting thing about that is the labor unions, one of the big ones that were being fought against, besides just all of them in general, was railroad unions. The railroad tycoons would, kill people and have people there that would, beat anybody up that would try to form a railroad union. When they were finally formed, they became a major force. Even today, steel workers, railroad, electricians weren't big back then, but engineer unions, all these were massive unions here in the United States and are still very strong today. Although I'm personally not a big fan of unionization. I think that there was a time and a place for it, and I don't know how much good unions do for people now. And I do believe that they were a huge avenue for criminal industries to get in, and the mafia, things like that. All of them had their hands in labor unions. It was like writing it was like a big check, right? I mean, you could hold businesses hostage and things like that. But anyway, people don't realize that what Labor Day is a celebration of a bunch of individuals and unions that fought for the rights that they have now and are actually, stepping all over while they're trying to do. I'm going to put this on. Okay. I hate this. I don't like having my headphones on both ears because it makes my glasses go tweaky. I've got to figure out how to do this better. But one ear doesn't seem to work. So I apologize for all the moving around. And so when we do things, we forget about where they come from and we throw it away. Those things disturb me. So either get rid of the holiday, because, the federal government and the, and the state governments, they were part of the problem. But they're the ones still reaping the benefits of the days off. Banks didn't want us to cut hours because they profited off the monies from the businesses. Federal and state governments didn't want these shorter days because, again, it all comes down to taxation and things like that. So they weren't advocates of these laws. They were anti these laws. Now, all this to be said, this is a labor union laborers issue, not to be mistaken with Canada also celebrates this holiday is on the first day of September. International Workers' Day is celebrated pretty much worldwide on May 1st. As is United States, we also have another holiday called May Day. Now, this May Day and the International Workers' Day is not the same thing as Labor Day. Labor Day. Sorry. It's not. And this is where people get confused. May Day is a celebration. It's a socialist holiday. And it's the Socialist Federation or Socialist Foundation doing kind of the same thing, but more as a political group, as opposed to Labor Day is specifically it was specifically founded and operated and suggested by labor unions, where the people themselves, form these unions in order to have something to fight big government and big business. Where May Day was a socialist holiday. And And a lot of people, when I was chatting with this with a couple people the other day, it's like, yeah, we have two holidays like that, and we have May Day as well. And I'm like, well, May Day is a political statement, not it has nothing to do with the unions. And I also kind of, and a lot of this, most people now, we don't talk about this. I try not to get too deep into politics or too deep into religion, but I was born and raised Catholic, and I'm a Knight of Columbus. And the Knights of Columbus is a Catholic fraternity that was founded. Thanks, JJ Nick. I need more views. I'll look you up. Just kidding. The Knights of Columbus were founded around the same time frame in order to was formed by a priest, and the idea was to protect Catholic immigrants who were not allowed in labor unions, and because they were either Catholic or because their heritage was such that they weren't welcome into those unions. And these people would toil for, like I said, tons and tons and tons of hours without any support. And the Catholic Church wanted to find a way to support the widows and orphans that were left in the community because of the deaths of their husbands in these work accidents and from dying from overwork and exhaustion and sicknesses and things like that from being in unhealthy environments. So the Knights of Columbus were founded. And we've been around, like I said, we've been around since the 1800s, same sort of thing, and everything else. But I think we took our lead, and I don't know this for fact, but if you look at the dates, one of the primary forces before the unions came to be was an organization called the Knights of Labor. And the Knights of Labor was founded like early 1800s, like 1860, give or take, or we'll just say the 1860s, because I'm actually not sure of the date. And the Knights of Labor. Now, the very first time I heard of the Knights of Labor, I thought of like a bunch of women getting together that were helping other women with pregnancy. It's like the Knights of Labor, not KN, but NIGHTS. Bad joke. But the Knights of Labor were a fraternal organization that were kind of underground, that would that had meetings and would go out there and have big old burly guys that when there were protests, they would surround the protests. So the bullies. Now, when I say bully's actually a term. A bully is a person who would be hired to go and physically throw people around and hurt people by businesses or whatever in order to get it done. So the term bully, like you're bullying someone, is an actual term of a job of someone that handled this. And they were always big, burly, guys that had no problem breaking arms, breaking legs, breaking heads. And so anyway, the Knights of Labor were not only a precursor to the unions, but they were kind of an underground organization that would allow these groups to talk about, this is where we're going to protest, this is what we're going to go. And then they were the Hells Angels of today. Which is a good segue for later. They were the guys who were not really great guys, but they could be counter bullies. They were tough, and they didn't mind standing up and fighting against the bullies to keep the protesters safe. And so the Knights of Labor, eventually became the labor unions. So one was a fraternal order, and labor unions are not a fraternal order; they're a union, right? They're, I guess, in some senses, it's fraternal. And so all this stuff is happening, and then a bunch of major incidents happened that kind of pushed the movement over the top and got laws passed, and those also became what today is kind of Labor Day, and it's the American Foundation of Labor became a thing, and then all of a sudden unions were now legal, and all of it became really huge. But kind of going back, there had to be some things like the Haymaker Affair or the Haymaker Massacre, which was in early 1886, or maybe 1887. I need to start taking notes. I have these great notepads. I've got these sticky pads everywhere where I can write notes for these shows down, and I just never remember to do it. But anyway, Haymaker Affair or Haymaker Massacre was an event that happened in Chicago at a rally or protest that was happening over there by workers who make hay. Right? It happened at the Haymarket, and basically what happened was some bullies came in, people got hurt. Next thing you know, it wasn't just a brawl; it was an all out massacre. And that wasn't the only one, but the Haymaker one is fairly significant one, because after that, the city of Chicago and city of New York, city of Chicago, Atlanta, they were huge for these protests, and they were huge for body counts. And so the Haymaker incident is what really got all this stuff really kicked off, as far as the body count got high enough that politicians, I think some politicians got thrown in jail or prison because the politicians sent out the police and the bullies to quash the Haymaker incident or the protest, and it ended up going bloody and people dying. There was also several significant ones that happened in the railroad, and so what is Labor Day? It's a celebration of all that. And while everybody appreciates a good day off, I'm a business owner, and I'm a person who we have a lot going on and we have to do business, and our economy sucks ass. Excuse the verbiage, but the economy is terrible worldwide. The economy in the United States is terrible. Unemployment's through the roof, and you're going to give people another day off, at least. And most of the people who have a day off, it's not the people who work at McDonald's. It's not the people that work at our grocery stores. It's not the people that have to do day labor or people cleaning at hotels or things like that, which the original Labor Day movement, that's who it was supposed to be helping. I mean, before, there was no middle class. And prior to 1886, there were only two classes in the world. There was the wealthy and there was the poor. There wasn't much in the middle, right? And there's a kind of a saying that's done by the labor unions. It's something like, steel and railroad might have industrialized the world, but the union created the middle class. And don't quote me on how that goes, because as I'm saying it out loud, when it was going through my head, it sounded right. But as I said it out loud, it didn't sound 100% right. But the basic gist of it is, before unionization and these laws got passed for the 8-hour workday, originally it was a 6-day work week, not a 7-day work week. They gave Sunday off first and evolved to a 5-day work week. Before there was protections for people who got hurt on the job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There wasn't a middle class. You either toiled 7 days a week with massive hours for very little pay, and you probably died in poverty, or you were wealthy and you lived a wealthy life, because back then there were no taxes on the wealthy. That's how people like the Vanderbilts or JP Morgan or these guys became tycoons, because they didn't tax wealth. They didn't tax property. Most people don't realize that. I mean, farmers don't have taxation now, but if you were a millionaire in the 1800s, you were a true millionaire. I mean, because $1 million was $1 million, and whatever property you owned, it was tax free. There was no taxation on property. It wasn't until taxation became on property became a thing that a lot of the um, land barons, lost a significant amount of their on paper wealth. And I guess it wouldn't be on paper if they owned land. But point being that taxation on property became a major downfall, and that's the reason there's so many parks and so many federal, like federal landmarks. Is the way part of the way to get out of it was the wealthy would donate their property to the federal government with the. Are you talking about so your question is, so in this day and age, how would the middle class begin to gain wealth? Are you talking about 2024 or 1886? And I guess I can quickly answer both. So in 2024, well, Labor Day doesn't help the middle class now. I'm not my point here is not was where does Labor Day come from and is it relevant anymore? I don't think the labor unions or any of the things the labor unions are helping anything to help people get wealthy. I think if you want to know how you get wealthy, work hard, create a product. Don't take these shortcuts. The last couple of days we've been talking about the fast clothing and the fast labor. Fast food, fast clothing, fast product. This is inferior product that gets out there, and it's all fake wealth. How do you know it's fake wealth? Timo lost $50 billion in a week, right? I mean, you can sell a bunch of crap, and if the crap is not sustainable and it's crappily made and everything else, if there's not new crap being made, people stop buying and then it drops off. That's temporary wealth. I mean, it's the same kind of wealth that TikTokers are finding and everything else. I'll spend a day if anybody's interested and do the research. But in 2022, as we were building our business, one of the arguments that I built is I found 50 TikTokers that in 2019 through 2021 were multimillionaires. And part of their it's like, oh, I'm making all this money. They bought houses, they bought cars. And that year, a lot of them were posting that they wish they had other information. They realized what was happening because they had quit school. They had done this full time and taxation hit them. All this stuff hit them and their trends had gone down because there were more people doing it and their numbers were going down and they were all broke and living back with mom again. And they were all giving warnings. And I was grabbing them from all sorts of genres. And I'm like, look, less than 1% of these people who are on social media are making actually a living wage. Less than 0.02% are finding wealth from it. And of that 0.02, 50% of them end up back worse off than they were after a couple of years because this isn't a job skill. And the things that they rely on to get there, it's vaporware. I mean, Amazon has kind of cut off Twitch. Some of the executives of Twitch left right before that because they knew it wasn't sustainable. All the social media companies they're trying to reorganize their companies. Layoffs are all over the place. It's vaporware. No one wants to work hard or build a real company. Real companies stand the test of time because you're creating something significant. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme that is going to disappear the second that trend fails or anything else. I'm dealing with that right now. Not the downside of it, but we're working with products and we're fighting with China and other countries every single day because you post something and you spend a year or 2 years creating product and then you put it out there And then within 10 days, you've got 20 new competitors doing the same thing, because after you put in all the money and the labor to create the product, they go back to the manufacturer you're making with in China and can buy it at pennies on the dollar, rebrand it and resell it. Coffee cups. I mean, remember when you only had one or two companies selling insulated coffee cups, and they went and created trademarks and not just trademarks, but they got their IP protection. I can't think of what it's called right now. And copy, they have copyrights, they have trademarks, they have everything else. Well, actually, good question. And I we talked about this a couple of days ago. China's starving right now. There's less money in the United States to buy the crap. And when I say crap, please forgive me. And the guys from Clutch watched the other day, and they thanked me for the comments I was making on their cup. This is a Clutch cup, American made. They created this from scratch, so this is not the crap. But I'm going to this is kind of a couple of interesting segues. It's hard to combat it, because when we were at the Jeep event, the very first day, and I've actually got a great video of this, day one of the event, there were 4 Chinese gentlemen that came to the event. They were 100% Chinese. They spoke almost no English, and they were walking around with video cameras, and every product they saw that had a bunch of people on there and it said made in the USA or help it's a small business and everything else, not only did they buy the product, but they were taking pictures of the product. And someone confronted them, and they didn't speak enough English to argue anything. But one of the guys said, I've seen them at 3 different trade shows. And what they're doing is they're going over there. They're coming to the US. They're teams of them. They buy the product. So Clutch was really worried. Clutch actually refused to sell them a cup, because they said that they knew that what they were doing was buying the cup so they could duplicate it, because it costs Clutch $6 to make this, and then they sell it. But they have it made over in China, and these guys were going to go over there, and they would probably get it made for $1 or $2, and the market would be flooded with these on Temu or half a dozen places, and they'd be on TikTok Shop in 3 months, and these guys would be out of business. How do you stop it? I mean, stop buying shit on TikTok that's made by third-party companies that you don't know and aren't, and don't have a legitimate product. I bought a product yesterday, because we have a company that we're working with, and I saw it looked like his product, and it was being offered for $150 less than he was offering his. So I bought one, compared the two. It's the exact same product, and on the back of it, it actually has the same code. Well, I called this guy up and said, hey, I've got a product in my hand that's a duplicate of your product. Here's the TikTok link. And he said, yep, it's being sold by the company I bought it from. And I said, do you have copyright? Is all your stuff trademarked and copyrighted? And he said, yeah. And he goes, but it's in China. There's absolutely no way. Not only is the business who's selling the product there, but the company who's selling it on TikTok is a Chinese company selling through online stores. And so there's no way to go over there and sue them or even stop it. And they're charging him for all the development costs. So he's paying what they told him it was going to cost. And then the company that's making it and selling him the product for $94 is selling, probably making it themselves for $80 or $70 and underselling him. And so I'm having this conversation with a lot of our partners right now, because it's hard to put your money into something if you're doing all the development, doing the cost, and then the federal government is doing nothing to monitor these sites that are not only selling from overseas, but shipping directly from overseas. There is no gate anymore. The gate is open. The cows are out in the field. And what I mean by that is anybody that's been a farmer, if your gate gets open and your animals get out, they end up in the stuff that you're growing for food. And then all of a sudden you have an entire field decimated because they're out there eating sometimes the product that you're growing to feed them in the winter. So everybody starves, everybody loses, and China's losing right now. China's got workers and factories and everything else closing down and people starving over there because they've scaled it up so big to do this market. And then what they're doing is they're competing against the people who are paying for those employees, because those companies aren't reinvesting the money in their own companies. They expect US companies or European companies to feed those people by buying the product at full price. I develop my cup, I'm making that cup there, I'm paying top dollar, keeps your workers going. Then you make your workers work extra hours, making it cheaper. So you're only paying for the raw materials. So that's not keeping them fed. And then you're outpacing the company who's paying you. This company goes out of business, so your people starve. What the fuck? Sorry. Way sorry. It infuriates me because it's just like the US government. Don't solve a problem. Don't actually look at the problem, analyze it, come up with a quick fix to make a fast buck or to solve a problem so you can fix an election, which only creates new issues. How many times has a law gotten passed in your state or your country, and like a month after that's done, it's in the news that it created 5 more problems because a politician wanted to say, hey, I solved the problem of XYZ and I'm great. And then they get elected, but they didn't look at it closed a bunch of businesses, or it created more problems on roads, or, you just killed off the last bald eagle in your state. Whatever it is, they never actually analyze the problem, and get to the root of the problem and fix it. They just look for a quick fix. And China's now in the same boat. Beat everybody. Industrial revolution. Beat. Scale this up. We're going to be the biggest and best country in the world. Blah, blah, blah. Now your people are starving. Now you've got nurses and doctors throwing themselves out of the 6th, 7th, 10th story windows because they haven't been paid in months and their families are starving. I agree 100%. And all this is happening. So I talked about different segues. So people go, oh, but these other countries are doing so much better. I think, and I wish I could look it up. I want to say it's in Colorado, but I don't think it is. I'm actually going to try to look it up. And if anybody knows, okay, it is Colorado. Okay, so have you guys heard about what's going on in Aurora, Colorado? Right? The Venezuelan gangs from Venezuela. I covered 4 weeks ago the turmoils that were going on in Venezuela at pre-election, post-election. And so these gangs are coming up from Venezuela. So even the gangs don't want to be in Venezuela anymore. Anyway, so these gangs have come over and taken over the town, parts of the town of Aurora, Colorado. And they've gone in and they've kicked out the managers of apartment complexes, created compounds, and then they are basically the owners. They're taking over in a way that they're extorting money out of the residents of these apartments. Police department doesn't know how to handle them. They're doing all this other stuff. And so once again, I feel like sometimes I feel like, Nostradamus, and what I mean by that is not that I'm clairvoyant or I'm the first one to see these things or understand them, but Nostradamus pretty much only talked about visions of doom. And I feel like, I kind of do the same thing. And you guys got to remember, many years in the military, many years in business, but, one of our businesses and our cooler businesses and something I've been around for a very long time is, okay, you're quite young and you feel the same way. Good. That's good to hear because you're rare. We own and we run something called the Self-Reliance Expo. And part of that is the whole doomsday preppers. And when people hear doomsday preppers, it's not all about, a meteor hitting the earth and destroying the earth, or some giant plague. All those are some doomsday preppers do look at things like that and everything else. A lot of it is economic downfall. And as part of that, I get up every morning and I'm reading news on the different countries and everything else, because especially nowadays, 50, 60, 80, 100 years ago, not so much. I mean, although it was still it still was the case, you know, the world economy is tied in with each other. Digital money, financing cross country borders by governments, they're constantly loaning each other money, doing things. The economies are so tied into each other that one country fails, you don't realize the repercussions unless you follow like I do. It's like, someone starts, the country of Zimbabwe starts to fail, it affects everybody. The country of Greece fails 3 times. Why does the EU keep bailing them out? Because Greece plays a major role in other countries' economies. Although they can't manage a freaking checkbook, that doesn't mean that they don't affect other things around them. What's going on in the Ukraine and Russia, it affects oil companies, it affects all kinds of things, because people don't realize Ukraine is like the second largest bread basket outside the United States. It's actually very similar to the Midwest of the US as far as how much corn they graze, how much grain they raise. That's the reason Russia wants them. Russia is like a frozen, it's like there's nothing in Russia. When I say nothing in Russia, there's very little agriculture in Russia. And Russia, when they lost Ukraine and they lost a lot of the countries outside that border and they became independent countries again, they lost where they got most of their food that supports the country. Yeah, well, and that's and your answer earlier, question earlier about, how do you combat this? How do you find wealth nowadays? It's understanding. It's, go back to teaching economics in school. It's like there is no U.S. or world economics it's like, even in college, my daughter gave me her economics book and I'm looking through it and it's like, who wrote this shit? It's like, they're not even teaching you what's going on in the world nowadays. It's all this, everybody holding hands and singing Kumbaya. Every professor writes a book and they make money on the book and the kids have to get their book. And, you're some, I forget, left-wing, right-wing socialist. It doesn't make a difference. Spew the facts, dude. I mean, it's like everybody's so big on taking a side and saving the world. You want to save the world? Get back to basics. There you go. I mean, wow, man, I need to have you on, just on the show. Both of you guys. I mean, I'm working with someone right now that is actually writing an economics book for homeschoolers. And when I was working with her last week and we were talking, she was trying to find all these resources. And she got a little upset at me because I started going through her stuff and I go, this is all garbage. And she says, this is what they're teaching in the college economic books and what they're teaching in the high school economics books. And I said, well, I don't know what states you're looking at and everything else, but I can dispute 80% of this. I go, first of all, you want to teach these homeschool kids how to balance a checkbook. Who the F has a checkbook anymore? Right? I mean, have that as 2 pages in there if you want to teach some basic fundamentals, but everybody's got a check card. Everybody's got an ATM card now, and now they're ATM Visa cards. And I go, and I talked to a student about a month ago, and it's a friend of my daughter's, and she was crying and she was so upset. And I go, what's wrong? And she said, I'm overdrawn on my account. And I said, do you not know how to balance it and track everything and everything else? And she goes, I track it to the penny. And she goes, I didn't realize there were so many fees on this. And because when we had checkbooks, there were no fees. There were banking fees they had to notify you on, but there was no additional fees on there. But she said after she gets 20 free uses of her ATM card, and over 20, they charge her 5 or 10 cents for every transaction she does after that. And if she clicks the wrong button, she was never taught that if you don't click the debit card button, but the Visa card button, there's an extra charge by Visa on top of that. And so where she went $47 overdrawn that month on fees. Yeah, she had gone through, she thought she was balancing everything. She knew what was going on. Yeah, she's now graduated high school. She's living on her own in an apartment. She's crying to my daughter in my house, talking about it, how she didn't know how she got overdrawn $47. And I'm like, teach that in economics. I mean, the government and these banks keep pushing us to go more paper free, this free, that free, do things on TikToks. Now you got taxes online. Now you've got this. Go to the grocery store, use Walmart Pay. Okay, you use Walmart Pay and it seems easier and everything else. Extra 6% because you're using a internal credit card. Okay, so taxes, I mean, yeah, good. Well, good for you for helping your friends. There is no free money. I was just talking to that, and it's ridiculous. But so she actually, at the end of it, she, my friend, stopped being very mad at me, and she said, "You know something? I see what you're saying. This is right, and this could because homeschool kids are even a step away from high school kids. I mean, from regular, everyday kids, because." Every kid in my daughters and my nephews and my niece, they all have credit cards now. Almost every kid, when my daughter was back in junior high, everybody was walking around with ATM Visa cards. And it's so easy for them to get them now. There's actually a company that targets kids in junior high. Your parents sign for it, but it's supposed to help you learn credit. But I don't believe it does. I mean, it's a good thing in theory, but half the parents don't even understand it. So it's like the blind leading the blind. So anyway, Labor Day. Is it useful anymore? Hell's Angels. Anyway, that comment about the Hell's Angels. So the Hell's Angels have now offered and are heading to Aurora, Colorado to kick out the gangs out of the country. You know something? Kind of a weird thing. When I got out of the military, and I went back out to California because that's where my mom was living and working and everything else. That's where I went to high school. Hell's Angels were everywhere. I had several friends that their dads were Hell's Angels. And Hell's Angels, part of the time, these guys are businessmen. These guys own businesses and everything else. It's a club. You got a lot of bad people in the club, a lot of good people in the club, but it's a club. And I rode with them, probably about 10 or 15 times. When I say rode with them, I wasn't a Hell's Angel. The supporter group is called the Black and Red. And they would have what were called pancake runs, pancake rallies, or poker rallies, where you drove down the California coast and you stopped and poker runs are very popular, pancakes run, and you did it for charity. And they did it for a bunch of different charities. And since I was friends with the sons of a couple guys that were part of the motorcycle group, I had my Harley and I would go and ride with them. And I have to say, most of them were really nice guys. You didn't do anything to piss them off. It was like anybody else. And coming from the military, that was all the guys I hung out with the military too. You didn't piss them off. You didn't get into fights. One of the bases one of the trainings I went through, my Halo training, my airborne training, Halo is high altitude, low opening, at Fort Lee, Virginia. Our class consisted of Marine Force Recon, Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces, Air Force, Pararescue, and Recon. All of those people jump from high altitude, and the training facility for that is at Fort Lee, Virginia. And most of those guys don't get along. Not the special ops environment, which all that's big ego too. But the Army guys and the Marine guys, every single night, someone was kicking the shit out of someone else. And I kind of feel like that when I got out, I kind of felt like that was the whole Hell's Angels thing, which is when everybody was going to class and everybody was doing everything, everybody was copacetic. Everything was cool. When you guys went on the maneuvers and you guys had to help each other out, everybody was fine. Soon as you had a couple of beers in you, yeah, yeah, we were calling the Navy certain things. Marines were, no brain cannon fodder that had a, Chesty Fuller is one of their icons, or a person they admire. He's the first Marine aviator, and we'd say, Chesty Puller was a pedophile. That would always get the first punch thrown. So there was always ways to get things. And I kind of feel like the Hells Angels are the same way. You don't hear about them for years because nothing goes on. Unless you get them up in Sturgis and they get drunk, and then they and the Diablos or whoever get in a big fight and it becomes part of it. Wow. I agree. It's a few bad apples. Do they sell drugs? Sure, but my next door neighbor sells drugs. Not here, but back then. It's like he was a college student who was selling drugs. Does that make that Hell's Angel or the Hell's Angels group bad? It makes them maybe stupid, right? I mean, they got busted a lot. Do they commit murders? Yeah, but every day I'm seeing regular citizens committing murders. There are probably more more murders created by the jealous boyfriend or things like that than you ever see coming out of a motorcycle gang, right? So it's like everything. It can be slanted. I'm not saying, like I said, they're all great guys, and even the bad guys are sometimes pretty good. Sometimes you have to be a bad guy to do good things. I'm that way. I mean, some of the things we talked about the other day, when I look back at some of the things I did in the military, I went in with great intentions, had that American patch on my shoulder. I thought my shit didn't stink. I thought our shit didn't stink. We went in there. That doesn't mean the people that you're trying to help or the people that are opposed to that help don't think you're the Hells Angels. There you go. Right. Every invader since the dawn of time thinks they're doing the great thing for their country and just doing the right thing. And every person invaded thinks you're the Hells Angels and you're a bad group of people. Murderers, killers, rapists. It's the way of the world. Yeah. Winners write the history. Losers fade into obscurity and hate everybody until they win again. But anyway, the Hells Angels thing earlier, that's kind of where that comes from. But you know how many textiles and how much stuff we get out of Venezuela? Again, economics. We talked about this a month ago, and I was telling you, what was the other one? Bangladesh. Clothing industry dying right now. There's no free labor, no cheap labor in Bangladesh because there's, the president got kicked out of the country, or didn't get kicked out, fled the country. And, there's another country in upheaval. Does affect the United States. It affects everything. Teach everybody the basics. If we can figure out the basics, if we can teach each other what's going on, if we can have a clear understanding, if we would stop hamstringing each other by trying to make more money or get things done faster, cheaper, because what you're not looking down is 6 months, a year, 2 years down the line when you're shutting down the businesses that are your everyday support. It just becomes like my closing down my restaurant. It's not because I couldn't bring people in. It was because I couldn't keep up with McDonald's or Wendy's who are buying, 80% of the chicken because the beef market was down, and I couldn't get, I'd have to charge someone $37 for a chicken sandwich because the prices were so high. Right. So it's like, when you can't compete now, the CEO of Wendy's made a comment that they wish they hadn't they panicked, they overbought because a lot of it went to waste because they overbought the supply and they couldn't use it all because everything started stabilizing. And they realized how many other businesses they hurt by doing so. And when those people, you think if I work at McDonald's, I eat at McDonald's. I mean, I probably eat at Wendy's, right? And if I lost my job at McDonald's, I'm probably not eating at Wendy's or the fast food restaurants. Or, if I lost my job, most of my employees didn't eat at my restaurant. They ate occasionally at my restaurant, but they usually went out and ate something like that. When they lost their jobs with me, they didn't they were not going out and buying fast food, fast clothing, everything else. It's a connected chain, folks. And the sooner we realize that that the things you're doing or the things these businesses are doing is not in a bubble, it does affect other things, the better off we're going to be again as a society. You know, and right now I feel like, it's crazy. It's crazy town. So sorry, I started off on Labor Day, but this is exactly what Labor Day was all about, right? It's like they were not understanding before the labor unions and everything got back in place. It was people, they didn't realize that the people you were killing, the people that you were not giving wages to, all this other stuff, were not putting the money back in the system. And they had to create labor laws. And as that happened, the Industrial Revolution, no, it was fine. First of all, if you ever look at my statement, I sit there and say, a person who continually goes down rabbit holes, do it with me. I am the rabbit hole king. If I were Alice, I never would have made it to Wonderland because I would have made so many sidetracks. And so anyway, the question I ask you is, are labor unions relevant? Are these days off relevant anymore? I think, I can't see history repeating itself, right? It's these guys are defending things that everybody takes advantage of anymore. No one cares about, and they're trying to get more. And so I say, put this in the history books, get people back to work, especially the damn federal employees and state employees. You guys get too much time off now, and you can't meet a budget, and you can't get things done in a timely manner. When you guys can get that done, then come talk to me about extra days off. All right. It's like, do the teachers need another day off? You're at a 4-day school week. Come on. Luckily, I will say this. When I was told yesterday, when I realized Saturday, because today's Monday, when I realized Saturday that Monday was a holiday, I laughed my ass off because I have my brother-in-law and sister-in-law teachers. And they were like, oh, 4-day school week. We're so excited, blah, blah, blah. And so family is just as guilty as everybody else, especially my family, of being idiots and not understanding what's going on with the economy. But anyway, and then they go, oh, Monday's a holiday. We get Monday off. And I started busting up and I said, you guys realize as a school union how stupid you guys are? Because if you had said middle of the week, Wednesday we were cutting it down to a 4-day school week, and Wednesday is the day we're taking out, then you would have gotten all the federal holidays and state holidays because they always fall on a Monday. All you did was cut off that free paid day by giving yourself that day off. So you actually lost money. There's an economics, thing for you. Because if you guys understood how basic math worked and you really wanted to make the most amount of money in your year for less work, you would have picked a freaking day that would have allowed you to still get all the paid holidays and get your day off. Idiots. So anyway, and I appreciate they were stupid because at least now I think there's 11 or 12 paid holidays they no longer get because they just get that day off. Sometimes we win. All right. Well, that hour went by really quick. I'm standing really tall on my soapbox right now. And guys, look at what you're doing. I keep saying it over and over again. Things aren't getting better. Figure out ways to cut back, ways to cut out. Stop spending money on TikTok crap. I mean, while all these gadgets are cool, and I'm guilty of it as well. We talked about my clothing donations. We got rid of another 3 bags. And I'm actually, when I get done with this stream, I'm going back in there and going into my basement because remember my basement flooded. I spent a day, pulling stuff out of there. But we have boxes of clothes in there. Didn't get wet. They're on shelves. But as I was sucking water out of my basement and trying to get it dry for my house to get lifted, I was like, holy shit. Yeah. How old are these clothes? And so I'm guilty of living that life just like everybody else. I'm 50% idiot most of the time. The other 50% of the time, I'm that's I was going to give my math. 50% of the time I'm good. 50% of the time I'm an idiot, and 10% of the time I'm genius. But that shows what an idiot I am, because that's 110%. But if anything else, use the things I throw at you as a platform to look up things, come to your own opinions, but don't ignore it. Don't stick your head in the sand and just say, "Oh, well, this is what everybody else is saying." Do your own research. Look it up. Yeah, let's see that math. 110%. That's the good math. I'm good. It's if everybody just took it upon themselves to take a minute to read, to look things up, to extrapolate what that means 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down in your future, you might come to realize that the things you're doing can be done a different way, more cost effective, better long lasting effects, things like that. And number two is you're probably going to be helping your family and your kids down the road, because most people aren't going to take that time. So, so today, Yi, if you're watching, no work today. I'm working on the house today for the rest of the rest of the week. I've got busy stuff. 7 p.m. tonight, we're doing our first Pokemon. Oh, thinking of idiots. I should give this warning to everybody, in case you watch this later or everything else, and we'll be posting it up here in the next hour when Billy gets up. Billy's not going to be up in the next hour. In the next 2 hours when Billy gets up. So we are going to do our show tonight. We're going to talk about how we're going to do it, the rules, everything else. I realized I have Billy's mat and all his cards, because when I left Hawaii, he still had a trip to take. He was staying in Hawaii, and then he had to go to Colorado, and he didn't want to carry it 3 steps. And so I said, I'll take everything, and we'll sync up before that, and we'll distribute everything. And so Saturday evening, as I was setting up my table and I was doing everything, and by the way, I'm actually getting rid of this table. What an idiot I am. I told you I was going to cut some trees. Squirrel hole, rabbit hole. And this actually could have been a squirrel hole. I cut down an old walnut that's probably been dead for 10 years, maybe, completely dried out. Cut it down. Walnut is not the best burning wood. It's decent. It's a good hardwood, good for a lot of things, but not great for burning in the winter. But it makes a good mix. Smells really good, things like that. But anyway, it had such a great color inside it. Well, walnut's just a great wood to work with. It's why Jaguar puts walnut dashes on their Jags and things like that. Beautiful wood. And it's got a great live edge. That live edge is that hard bark on the outside that's wavy. And I decided today I'm going to cut a piece off, and I'm going to make a custom table for this card game. And I'm going to try to make the trees probably 16 foot long, because you trunk it, right? The tree was bigger than that, but the big, can't see me when I do this. The big chunk of the main part of the tree that is solid, looks clean, no branches, anything else, about 16 foot long. And it's about, I don't know, 22, 26 inches across at the widest point and everything else. And so I'm going to make my first custom table. So I'm going to use a saw, cut across it. And lumber costs. Most of the place here and everything else, we cut down trees and we build everything ourselves. So I have a little sawmill. It's not very big. It's big enough to put one log on it, and it's a pain in the ass. You bought it when we first moved up here. You put it on there. You actually use a chainsaw, and you put a chainsaw on it, and you set your levels and your measurement, and then it runs on a rail and takes the chainsaw and cuts it across, and then you bring it back. and then you drop it down to the next level and you run it across, and you keep doing that until you get your boards. And then if you want clean edges like 2x4s or 4x4s or whatever, then you put the board back on there and you flip the chainsaw down, and then you cut off the rough edge, and then it slides over, and you keep doing that and you get your boards. And so most of the stuff here is yeah, exactly. And that's my little sawmill. And so when I cut that log down, I was like, wow, this is really pretty wood. It's got great green. It looks so great. And I'm going to plank it. So just to see how it looked under there, I just took off a top layer, just with the chainsaw and not with the track, and looked at it. I'm like, okay, this is too beautiful. It's a plastic table here. The one I set up for the card play is just a plastic folding table. I mean, the setup looks cool, but it's a piece of crap. And I've got access to a bunch of old barn metal. Like I think the legs I'm going to put on my table. I have an old 1800 Singer sewing machine that got thrown out. You know, it's got 2 solid steel or cast iron steel legs. I'm going to take those off, cut the log, put those on there. I'm going to draw out the mat, and I'm going to route it into the table and get me that lower thing. And then I'm either going to drop the mat in there so it's completely level with the walnut table, and I'll finish out, sand and varnish the top of the table. But that way, if I want to change mats, I can drop it in there. But I'm going to put a cup holder in it, and I'm going to do the whole 9 yards. That's going to be one of my fun projects for either this week or next weekend. And then I'm going to go ahead and make one and send it to Billy. But then I thought those would be cool giveaways. It's like, Pop's handmade card, Pokemon playing tables. Won't sell them, just give them away. I'd probably have to make you guys pay the shipping and handling, because it's probably going to be like $40. If depending on how thin I cut mine's going to be pretty thick. I'm probably going to do 2 inches, but they don't have to be that thick. And I could get more out of it if I went like inch or inch and a quarter. But wouldn't that be cool? It'll have live edges. So means that the bark or if the bark falls off, it'll just be a live edge. So the wavy part of the tree would be on there. It'll look pretty. And it'll be kind of cool. And those could be cool giveaways. Most people are probably saying, wouldn't want one. But, there's enough people that play the game seriously that getting something custom like that might be fun. And, I think it would be an awesome table. And if you've never seen natural oak with just an oil on it and varnished, God, just Google it. Beautiful wood. And this was a great tree. And I kind of feel like, walnut trees don't have very deep roots. And wow, I'm way over deep roots. And so a lot of them get blown down here. I've got probably 8 walnut trees that got in the storms, got blown over. And when they get blown over, sometimes with the roots that remain will keep the tree alive, and then the tree will be dead, and then it kind of lifts back up, and then that creates a base, and it goes up again. And a couple trees have done that. But if not, if the roots have snapped enough and it can't get enough water, it dies. And then I usually just let it sit there for a couple of years, and it naturally dries itself out. So, when I needed wood, as I was looking for wood, there was a couple there that didn't survive. And the upper parts of the branches were like just perfect for just tossing into the back of the trailer and just going straight to firewood. And like I said, it makes a good mix. Some oak, some lotus or osage in there. Those burn hot. Those are the best. But like if you throw a big log of osage or I can't remember what else we call it, but osage is what we call it in Texas. They call it something different up here. Or locust into your fireplace, and you just burn that. It actually gets so hot, it will melt your fireplace. So you take small chunks of that and you throw it in with your cottonwood or your pine or whatever. And the blend makes a good solid, like pine burns a long time. walnut burns a long time because it's got oils in it. It's like lighting an oil lamp, and it burns good and it burns clean, but it doesn't burn hot. You throw a couple pieces of oak in there, and a couple of small pieces of locust, or a couple small pieces of osage. God, it starts with an H. And hedge. That's what they call it up north. Hedge tree. And you throw that in there. That shit burns so hot, so you get all the heat. Your fireplace will get nice and red and hot and heat the entire place up. But the flame, it burns out relatively quick in comparison. But it helps burn that other wood, and you get the light for long periods of time, and you get that. So I went from Labor Day to talking about wood to talking about tables, talking about the Hells Angels. As I told you, this show is a coffee show. We just talk about anything we want during coffee, and I go down rabbit holes. So welcome to Wonderland, folks. Today, I don't know. It doesn't look, what everything I talked about doesn't look very pretty, so I don't know if it's Wonderland. So anyway, we are doing the show at 7 p.m. I've got some cool ideas on how we can do the show. And we'll talk about those on there. We are going to do a couple of giveaways. I am going to give away at least one ETB and one thing from the Worlds. And Billy and I talked about potentially giving away a plushie as well. So I'm looking forward to giving those away. It's Matthew's birthday day. His birthday was actually last week, so we're going to do happy birthday to Matthew. Oh, last thing, and then this really is the last that I'm getting off. So I talked about the idea I had with the cards and getting cards from a bunch of people and making decks and giving them to schools and things like that. We are solidifying that. People seem very hip and interested about doing that. And someone said I should definitely reach out to Pokemon International, because they give away packs for tears all the time. But if they knew that they were going to schools and charity, they might contribute some to our show. I think we got to get the numbers up. I'd love to be able to get like 100 people per show. I think that's decent, because a lot of the people this weekend, people that were doing pre-open, like there's a new ETB, a new pack coming out, Crystal something. And people got them this week, and they were doing tears all weekend. And I was looking at some of these numbers, and these people are barely pulling 20 to 40 people viewing them on a regular basis. And I thought, okay, so if we're doing it for charity, and we definitely give everything away, and number two, we can hit 100 people every week on the show, we might be able to get them to throw us the cards, which would be cooler, because then we could add a cool, it wouldn't just be the throwaway cards that not everybody wants in their deck. We could actually give away some really cool cards to those kids too, that could enhance their deck or might be collectible. Anyway, but I had mentioned the young man who we had helped, his grandmother, and got his grades up and everything else. Well, apparently they watched the rerun of this on YouTube, and they reached out to me because they were heading back from Ireland on Sunday because he has school, and they corrected me on a couple things. Oh, I don't have my phone here. Damn it. That I think he's going into second grade, or he was in second grade last year, and now he's going to third grade. Again, now I'm doing misinformation because I thought I brought my phone over here, but I didn't. But I think he will join us or watch, not this, because they're flying back from Ireland right now. He spent the entire summer in Ireland, and I was told and his grandmother said he did very, very well, and he's excited to get back to school. Pokemon did that. Trainer Club did that. People, I didn't do it. I mean, I met them and kind of cobbled it all together. But again, hearing the problem and then finding ways to fix a problem within the things that are helping cause the problem is a great way to do things. I mean, is this going to change this kid's life forever? No, but the grandmother said it changed her life, and it changed her husband's life, because he's a happy kid. He's managing everything okay. His mental health is better, and he was like hanging out with other kids and everything else. And it's like, holy shit. Something worked, and it didn't take a lot of effort. So I don't believe he will be on tonight at 7 because she said that they wouldn't be back in time. But the following Monday, she said they would be on the stream, and hopefully we can get her to chat a little bit. When I say on the stream, she'll be in chat. I told them that we need to make up sure their phone is set up, because I can send them a link and get them on the phone, and maybe we'll do a tear open with him as well. And I think that would be cool. And if I get him on that following week, wifey, what I think I'm going to do is I'm not going to tear open a pack with Matthew, if that's okay with you. I'm going to let him pick his packs, and then I am going to send them tomorrow. Because it won't be a federal holiday. The post office will actually be open. Speaking about another organization that doesn't work enough and is going broke. Anyway, I'll go to the post office and I'll put those in the mail. And then maybe your husband can help us. And next Monday, we will bring Matthew on live and we'll have him tear the pack on the stream. Would that be okay? Would you be down with that? Or, and you can ask him too. Not everybody wants to be on stream visually. And we could just do voice too, but then we wouldn't be able to see the cards. Or maybe your husband could set it up where we don't see him and we see the cards, especially when you're talking about minors. But I would love to have him tear the cards himself instead of me tearing the cards. And I think that would be a lot cooler and exciting for him. But I will let him pick them, and then I will get them in the mail tomorrow morning. Let me know what you think. You have my DM. Oh, cool. Matthew, that's awesome. So I'm going to let you pick 2 packs. You're going to pick the main one, and then I'm going to mix up the decks again and everything else. So you're going to get 2 tears for your birthday. I don't know what they'll be yet. And then you're eligible as well, you and your mom and whoever else, for getting whatever the giveaways are tonight. But we will do the picks live on air 7:15 as planned. And then we'll open them the following Monday on air before Billy and I sends our matches. And all this came to kind of a head when I realized Billy didn't have his stuff. And so if I'm going to send stuff in the mail tomorrow, we might as well send everything. And maybe we'll go ahead and have that young man join us as well. So we'll have 2 tears on Monday Anyway, I think that's cool. Yeah, let's go, Matthew. Matthew's going to end up pulling like a $200 or $400 card. I keep telling you I'm not going to do anymore, and I know my daughter's out there probably waiting for me to help. We had all the tools out to go ahead and start clearing some more stuff today before these tractors, backhoe, and everything else gets here on Friday. And I said, you get started. I'm only going to be on 45 minutes, and now it's been 1 hour and 30. Hope maybe she's got the whole thing clear and I won't have to do that today. Anyway, well, maybe it's a good thing I just took that pause and went down the rabbit hole because I forgot what I was going to say. So obviously wasn't important. As my grandmother would say, it was either unimportant or it was a lie. Probably was both, but no, just kidding. Yeah, but I think this is going to be really, really cool. I think this is going to be exciting. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Is I snuck out Saturday night and went to a Walmart, the Walmart in Creston, and they had just put out a bunch of booster packs. And I was like, okay, I'm going to buy 3 for me and just see what I get. Just tear them. I put them, after I tore them, I put them in a separate pile because my deal with Billy is we tear at the same time so we can see what's available, and that goes in the pile. So I just wanted to do it for myself. Was super excited. I'm always seeing these people online, especially these female creators that are like, and then they take off the, oh, I've got to learn my squeal. I mean, I'll come up with the squeal for you guys because it seems like you can't be a content creator and rip cards if you can't go up like 4 octaves and squeal at like this really high pitch and bounce around. It just seems like that's part of the whole culture. I'm not a squealer. You know, my excitement level gets to the F bombs, not the, you know, maybe it's the military in me. It's like becomes an F yeah or whatever. You know, I don't do the whole high pitched squeal thing. But for that show, I will wear a super tight tank top and I'll squeal for you, just so you guys can, you know, I could be part of that community and do it the right way. But anyway, I did those tears, and I'm going to pretend wifey said thank you to that as opposed to thank you for the other stuff, because it makes me feel good that people want to see me in a tight t-shirt. And I did the tears, and then I got this app from a company called, what's the company called? It's like Rare Candy. That's what the company is called, and their software. And they have a software where you can scan the card that you have, and it tells you the value. And they do a thing, they and another company that owns a different software, and I have them both now, because I've been comparing. You scan it with one and scan it with the other, and the prices are fairly comparable. It's like 2 cents, and this one might say it's 3 cents or whatever. No huge disparity between what they say the value of that card is. And let me tell you, most of these cards aren't worth crap. I mean, so I got a card that one of the girls, the Squealers, I'm not going to call her out on this because I know her a little now, and I don't want to like make her feel bad. But she drew one, and she was like super excited and screaming and everything else. And well, not the bulk buddy. I'm talking about, oh, you're saying the bulk cards, the ones that are available in bulk. Yeah. But even this one, it was the holo, and it was one, and she was super excited, and she's like all this other stuff. And she goes, oh my God, this is worth so much money, blah, blah, blah. And I scanned it, and I can buy it in like 10 different places for like $6. It's like, it's a $6 card. You know, and I looked on the auctions, and there's a couple that have been rated in their tens, and they go for maybe $25 or $30, but it costs you $25 to get it checked. And so it's like you just went ahead, you paid X amount of dollars for the card. So the amount that you paid, I mean, in this case, that card made that pack profitable. But when I bought 3, and that was the only card of value in 3 packs, I spent $12 to make 6. And if I wanted to send it in to get it PSA checked, I will have spent, we'll call it $40 for it maybe to be worth 30, maybe more. But this seems like an upside down market. It's like, I mean, collections are great. It's like comic books. You know, everybody when I was a kid and I collected comic books as a kid, you know, it was like Spider-Man Platinum, blah, 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 worth $10,000. I got one. And I remember going down and wanting to sell my Spider-Man Platinum, expecting to make $10,000, and the guy wanted to offer me $2,500 for it. And so, and it was like, wait, this says it was worth $10,000. And he's like, yeah, and I'll give you $2,500 because no one's buying them. And nowadays, that same comic is only worth like $4,000. So, I mean, yeah, it just, you have to wait. You have to get the set. Yeah, you're waiting for the market. But that's why I'm not really big on this. Like the guys that are pitching this as an investment, you know, like collect Pokemon cards because it's a good investment. Go back to your Bitcoin. You know, if you want a good solid investment, buy property. Right? I mean, property almost never goes down unless you buy at the highest end of a market. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not going to get on another soapbox. And that's because I'll be here for another hour, and you guys don't want to hear that. That's for tomorrow's rant. Just kidding. No, we won't get into that. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Always a pleasure to be on here with you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed your cup of coffee. Wherever you are, have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening. See you tonight at 7 p.m. if you guys can watch. And yeah, I hope you come back. I have a good group here. They're all great participators. Farm Don's brilliant. Wifey's brilliant. Missing O is brilliant. I really loved having you on this show. Can I ask how old you are? Because you said you were young and you had a bunch of friends. I'd love to just kind of know in general what kind of age bracket you're in, because very astute for dude at 25. If you're really looking at that stuff, yeah, that's or dudette. Not sure what your pronoun is, but is dude or dudette a pronoun? It's descriptive. Anyway, brilliant. Loved having you on here. You're welcome anytime. And enjoy a cup of coffee with me and everything else. So thank you all. Talk to you at 7:00 tonight. Be on there. Matthew, have a great day. We'll see you for your birthday poll, and we'll talk with you guys all later. Thank you much.